Before the fire went out, that's when the best stories were told. Before you settle in, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Folklore Crypt. It helps keep these stories alive and brings more folklore to your nights. And tell me, what time is it where you are right now? Drop it in the comments. I love knowing when and where around the world these stories find you. Welcome. I'm glad you're here with me tonight. Tonight we journey to the great savannas of East Africa. To the endless grasslands of Kenya where the sky stretches forever and the earth seems to breathe with the rhythm of countless generations. Where warriors prove their courage not with violence but with endurance. Where cattle are wealth and tradition is law. Where love, when it comes, can shake the very foundations of everything you've been taught to believe. This is a story about love. But not the easy kind. Not the love that arrives convenient and acceptable and approved by everyone around you. This is the love that asks everything of you. That demands you walk away from comfort. That requires you to face trials that will break you or transform you. That forces you to choose between the life you were born into and the life your heart demands you live. It's a story about a young Maasai warrior. About the girl who changed everything. About a journey that would test not just his body but his very soul. About 3 trials that would teach him what love actually cost. Let your breathing slow. Let the rhythm of this ancient tale carry you across those vast grasslands. Let yourself walk beside this warrior as he learns that some things are worth any distance, any sacrifice, any price. We begin in a village. Not large. Not small. Just a circle of homes on the endless plain. Where families lived as their ancestors had lived. Where the old ways were honored. Where every person knew their place and their purpose. In this village lived a young man named Daniel. He was 19 summers old. Old enough to be counted among the warriors. Young enough that the elders still watched him carefully. Judging. Measuring. Deciding if he would grow into someone worthy of respect. Daniel was not the strongest warrior. Not the fastest runner. Not the best with a spear. But he had something else. A quiet strength. A patience. An ability to endure. When other young men rushed forward, Daniel waited. When others spoke loudly, Daniel listened. When others sought glory, Daniel sought understanding. His father had been a great warrior. Had defended the village from raiders. Had led cattle raids that brought prosperity. Had earned the respect of every elder. Daniel's older brother followed in those footsteps. Strong. Bold. Everything a Maasai warrior should be. But Daniel was different. And everyone knew it. Some respected this difference. Others worried about it. His mother told him, "You have your own path. Not every warrior must be the same." His father was less certain. Hoped Daniel would grow out of this quietness. Would become more like his brother. More traditionally strong. Daniel didn't argue. Just continued being who he was. Walking the cattle to distant pastures. Sitting alone on the grasslands watching the sun move across the sky. Thinking thoughts he didn't share. Feeling things he couldn't name. He was content. Not happy, exactly. But content. Accepting his life. Expecting nothing more than what tradition offered. A wife chosen by his family. Cattle of his own. Children who would follow the same patterns. The same life his father lived. And his grandfather. And countless generations before. He expected nothing more. Until the day he saw her. It happened at the river. The place where 3 territories met. Where different villages came to water their cattle. Where warriors from different clans would eye each other warily. Maintaining distance. Respecting boundaries. Never speaking unless necessary. Daniel was there with his herd. Early morning. The other warriors from his village were still sleeping. He preferred these quiet times. Just him and the cattle and the sound of water moving over stones. That's when he saw her. A girl on the opposite bank. Perhaps his age. Perhaps younger. I had to tell from distance. She was filling clay pots with water. Moving with a grace that made the simple task look like a dance. She wore the colors of the northern clans. The rivals. The people his village had been in quiet conflict with for as long as anyone could remember. Not open warfare. Just cold distance. Mutual mistrust. Marriages between the groups were forbidden. Trade was minimal. They existed in the same region but in different worlds. Daniel should have looked away. Should have ignored her. Should have focused on his cattle. But he didn't. He watched her fill the first pot. Lift it to her head with perfect balance. Set it down. Fill the second. Her movements were smooth. Practiced. Beautiful in their simplicity. She glanced up. Across the river. Their eyes met. Just for a moment. Maybe 2 heartbeats. Maybe 3. Then she looked away. Finished filling her pots. Lifted them both. Balanced them on her head. Walked back toward her village without looking back. Daniel stood there. His cattle drinking. The sun climbing higher. Something in his chest that hadn't been there before. A feeling he couldn't name. An ache. A longing. A sense that something had just changed fundamentally even though nothing had actually happened. He told himself it was nothing. Just a girl. Just a moment. It meant nothing. But when he returned to the river the next morning, earlier than necessary, he knew he was lying to himself. She was there again. Filling her pots. She saw him. Their eyes met again. This time she didn't look away immediately. Neither did he. They stood there. River between them. Distance between their worlds. Looking at each other like they were trying to solve a puzzle. Then she smiled. Small. Quick. Like she couldn't help herself. Daniel felt his heart do something strange. Something that had never happened before. She finished filling her pots. Left. He watched her go. This became a pattern. Every morning. Daniel arriving with his cattle earlier than needed. The girl arriving to fetch water. Neither speaking. Just seeing each other. Just these moments of eye contact and small smiles. Daniel knew this was dangerous. Knew he should stop. Knew that even these innocent meetings would be forbidden if anyone knew. The rivalries between clans ran deep. Built on old grievances. Old cattle raids. Old insults. Things that happened before Daniel was born but still shaped everyone's present. But he couldn't stop himself. These morning meetings became the center of his day. Everything else was just waiting for dawn. 2 weeks passed like this. Silent acknowledgement across water. Growing bolder. Her smiles lasting longer. His own smiles appearing despite himself. Then one morning, she spoke. Just 2 words. Across the river. Barely audible over the water sounds. Your cattle are beautiful. Simple words. Ordinary words. But they landed in Daniel's chest like something precious. He should have stayed silent. Should have maintained the distance. But he replied. Not as beautiful as the water bearer. She laughed. Soft. Surprised. Then covered her mouth like she'd made a mistake. They stood there. Words hanging between them. Both knowing they'd crossed a line. Both unable to care as much as they should. What's your name? Daniel asked. She hesitated. Then, Sarah. I'm Daniel. I know, she said. I've been watching you watching me. Daniel felt his face warm. embarrassed. Caught. It's okay, Sarah said. I've been watching you too. That was the beginning. Real beginning. From that day, they began talking. Just a few minutes each morning. Across the river. Keeping distance. Making sure no one from either village saw them. They talked about small things. The cattle. The weather. The birds that migrated through. Nothing deep. Nothing revealing. Just the tentative exploration of two people learning each other's voice. But even these small exchanges felt significant. Felt dangerous. Felt inevitable. Sarah told him about her family. 3 brothers. All warriors. All protective. All would be furious if they knew she was speaking to someone from Daniel's clan. Daniel told her about his father's expectations. His brother's shadow. His own sense of not quite fitting. They found common ground in being different from what was expected. In feeling like they were playing roles rather than living authentically. The conversations grew longer. Deeper. They started arriving earlier. Leaving later. Taking risks. Other warriors from Daniel's village started noticing his early departures. Teasing him. You found a secret grazing spot you're not sharing. Daniel laughed it off. Made excuses. Deflected attention. But inside, he was changing. The world felt different. Colors seemed brighter. Food tasted better. Even the endless grasslands felt less empty. Because Sarah existed in them. He knew this was foolish. Knew it couldn't last. Knew that eventually someone would see them. Would report them. Would force this to end. But he couldn't stop. Didn't want to stop. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt fully alive. Sarah seemed to feel the same. She told him one morning, I dream about these meetings. Count the hours until dawn. Daniel admitted the same. Said what he'd been afraid to say, I think about you all day. Between dawn meetings. Just replaying our conversations. This went on for 3 months. Summer turning to autumn. The rains coming. Making the river swell. Forcing them to raise their voices to be heard. They learned everything about each other. Sarah's love of singing. Daniel's habit of talking to the cattle. Her fear of thunder. His fear of disappointing his father. Her dreams of seeing the ocean. His dreams of understanding why life felt so prescribed. They became the center of each other's world. The secret that made everything else bearable. And slowly, inevitably, they fell in love. Not the dramatic kind you hear about in songs. Not lightning strikes and immediate recognition. Just the slow accumulation of moments. The gentle building of trust. The realization that this person understood something in you that no one else did. Daniel realized it first. Lying in his family's home one night. Unable to sleep. Finally naming the feeling that had been growing for months. He loved her. Completely. Thoroughly. In a way that made everything else feel less important. The realization terrified him. Because loving Sarah meant standing against everything he'd been raised to accept. Meant defying traditions older than memory. Meant choosing between his family and his heart. He told her the next morning. At the river. With dawnlight turning the water golden. I love you. 3 words. Simple. True. Sarah was quiet. Looking at him across the water. Her eyes filling with tears. I know, she said. I love you too. They stood there. River between them. Love acknowledged. Future uncertain. What do we do? Sarah asked. Daniel had been thinking about this. Trying to find solutions. Trying to imagine paths forward. I could speak to your father. ask for permission to court you properly. Sarah shook her head. He would never allow it. The rivalry is too deep. My brothers would kill you before you finished asking. Then I'll speak to my father. Ask him to negotiate with your clan. To bridge the divide. Your father would refuse. He fought against my people. Lost friends to them. He would see this as betrayal. Then what? Daniel asked. What possible path exists for us? Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then, maybe there isn't one. Maybe we were foolish to let this happen. Daniel felt something crack in his chest. No. I won't accept that. What choice do we have? I don't know yet. But I'll find a way. I promise you. I'll find a way. Sarah looked at him with such sadness. Such love. Such impossible hope. How? The distance between our worlds isn't just physical. It's centuries deep. Built on blood and grievance and pride. Two people can't overcome that. Maybe not, Daniel said. But I have to try. I can't go back to my life before you. Can't pretend these months didn't happen. Can't accept that we have no future. What will you do? I don't know yet. But I'll think of something. They parted that morning with more questions than answers. More fear than hope. But also with love spoken. Acknowledged. Made real. Daniel returned to his village troubled. Distracted. His brother noticed. You're different lately. What's happening? Nothing. Just thinking. About what? Life. Purpose. Tradition. His brother laughed. You think too much. That's always been your problem. Just live. Accept what is. Stop questioning everything. But Daniel couldn't stop questioning. Not anymore. The questions had multiplied. Become urgent. Demanded answers. That evening, Daniel's father called him aside. Sat him down. Looked at him with concern. The elders have been talking. They think it's time you married. Daniel's heart sank. Now? Why now? You're 19. Old enough. We've identified several suitable girls. From good families. Strong lines. You'll meet them. Choose one. What if I don't want any of them? His father frowned. This isn't about want. This is about duty. About continuing our line. About alliances and family. Personal preference is secondary. But what if I love someone else? His father's expression hardened. Who? Daniel almost told him. Almost said Sarah's name. Almost explained everything. But fear stopped him. Fear of his father's anger. Fear of consequences he couldn't predict. Nobody, he lied. Just speaking hypothetically. There's no room for hypothetical love in our world, his father said. There's only duty. Tradition. Family. You'll understand when you're older. But Daniel did understand. That was the problem. He understood exactly what his father was saying. Understood the world he was born into. Understood that there was no space in it for the love he felt for Sarah. And understanding this made his choice clear. Terrifying. But clear. He couldn't live in a world that demanded he abandon the only thing that made him feel fully alive. Couldn't accept a life that treated love as secondary to duty. Couldn't be the person his father wanted if it meant losing the person Sarah made him become. So Daniel began to plan. Not clearly at first. Just vague ideas. Desperate thoughts. But slowly, a shape emerged. If there was no path forward within tradition, he would create one outside it. If the distance between their worlds was too great to bridge, he would cross it anyway. If love required him to walk away from everything he knew, then he would walk. He didn't know how yet. Didn't know what trials awaited. Didn't know if success was even possible. But he knew he had to try. Because the alternative, accepting a life without Sarah, accepting a life where love was secondary to duty, felt like a death that just continued breathing. So Daniel made his decision. The decision that would change everything. That would test him in ways he couldn't imagine. That would teach him what love actually cost. He would go to Sarah's village. Would ask her father's permission. Would face whatever came. And if permission was denied, which it almost certainly would be, he would prove himself worthy. However long it took. However far he had to walk. However much he had to endure. Because love, he was beginning to understand, wasn't something you found conveniently nearby. It was something you earned through sacrifice. Through courage. Through walking distances that seemed impossible. He told Sarah his plan at their next meeting. "I'm coming to speak to your father." Sarah's eyes widened with fear. "Daniel, no. He'll refuse. He might hurt you. Might alert your village. This could start real conflict. I know the risks. But I have to try. Can't keep meeting in secret. Can't keep pretending there's no future. I need to face this directly. And when he refuses, when my brothers threaten you, when you're standing there with no path forward, then I'll make one. I'll do whatever it takes. Walk however far. Face whatever trials. Prove that I'm worthy of you." Sarah looked at him with tears streaming down her face. "You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most foolish." "Maybe both," Daniel said. "But I know this, I can't live without you. Won't live without you. So I do whatever is required." They held hands across the river. First time touching. Just their fingers meeting over the water. Such a small connection. But it felt like everything. "When?" Sarah asked. "Tomorrow. Before I lose courage. Before doubt creeps in. I'll prepare my father. Try to soften him. But Daniel, don't expect mercy. The rivalry runs too deep. I understand. But I have to try." They parted that morning knowing everything was about to change. Knowing that tomorrow would either create a path forward or destroy all hope. Daniel walked back to his village. The sun climbing higher. His heart pounding with fear and determination and love. He didn't sleep that night. Just lay in his home. Listening to his family breathing. Knowing this might be the last peaceful night. That tomorrow he would cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed. At dawn, before anyone else woke, Daniel left his village. Walked north. Toward Sarah's clan. Toward the moment that would define his life. The morning was beautiful. Clear. The kind of day that makes you believe anything is possible. Daniel walked with purpose. Each step taking him closer to Sarah's world. Closer to confrontation. Closer to whatever trial awaited. He thought about what he would say. How he would appeal to her father. What arguments might work. But deep down, he knew arguments wouldn't matter. This wasn't about logic. It was about tradition. About pride. About generations of conflict. Still, he walked. Because what else could he do? Love demanded action. Required courage. Refused to accept convenient impossibilities. As Sarah's village came into view, Daniel's heart pounded harder. Fear threatening to turn him back. But he pushed through. Kept walking. Warriors from Sarah's clan saw him approaching. Recognized his clothing. His clan markings. They moved to intercept. Hands on their spears. Eyes hostile. "State your business," one demanded. "I've come to speak with your elder." With Sarah's father. On a matter of honor. The warriors exchanged glances. Confused. Suspicious. This wasn't how raids happened. Wasn't how conflict started. A single young warrior approaching openly. Asking to speak. They conferred. Finally agreed to escort him. Not as a guest. As something between guest and prisoner. Daniel was led to the center of the village. To a large home where the elders gathered. Where decisions were made. Sarah's father emerged. A tall man. Strong. With eyes that had seen much. Survived much. He looked at Daniel with immediate suspicion. "Why is a warrior from the southern clans in my village?" Daniel took a breath. This was the moment. No turning back now. "I've come to ask permission to court your daughter." To ask for Sarah's hand. The silence that followed was absolute. Total. Everyone staring at Daniel like he'd spoken in tongues. Then Sarah's father began to laugh. Not with humor. With disbelief. With something close to rage. "You walk into my village. A boy from the people who killed my brother. Raided our cattle. Spilled our blood. And you ask for my daughter?" "Yes," Daniel said quietly. "On what grounds? What makes you think I would ever agree?" "Because I love her. Because she loves me. Because love matters more than old grievances." Sarah's father stopped laughing. His expression went cold. "Dangerous. Love. You speak to me of love. You know nothing of love, boy. Love is protecting your family. Honoring your ancestors. Maintaining your traditions. Not betraying them for foolish feelings. With respect, elder, I disagree. Love that requires abandoning your heart isn't love. It's obedience dressed as virtue." The surrounding warriors stared. Angry. This outsider showing disrespect. Sarah's father stepped closer. His voice quiet. Controlled. More dangerous than shouting. "You have courage, I grant you that. Stupidity too. But courage. So I give you a chance. Not because I think you deserve it. But because I want you to understand exactly how impossible your request is." Sarah's father circled Daniel slowly. Looking at him from every angle. Assessing. Calculating. "You want my daughter? Then prove yourself worthy. Not with words. With action. With endurance. With sacrifice." "I will," Daniel said. "Tell me what you require." The elder smiled. Cold. Without warmth. "There is an old shrine. Far from here. In the mountains to the west. A place where our ancestors made offerings. Where the spirits still dwell. It's a journey of many weeks. Through difficult terrain. Past villages that won't welcome you. Across lands where dangers exist that you can't imagine." Daniel waited. Knowing there was more. "If you reach this shrine," Sarah's father continued, "you will find a priest. An old man who tends the sacred fires. Who communes with the ancestors. Tell him your story. Ask him what price must be paid for forbidden love. He will give you 3 trials. 3 tests. Each designed to teach you something. Each harder than the last. Complete all 3, return here with proof, and I will consider your request." Consider. Not grant. The elder's smile widened. "Consider. I make no promises beyond that. But fail these trials, or fail to return, and you will have your answer. The ancestors themselves will have rejected you." The warriors around them murmured. Some approving. Most skeptical. This boy from the southern clans would never survive such a journey. Would never complete unknown trials. This was a gentle way of refusing, of letting fate do what the father couldn't do directly. Daniel understood this. Understood he was being sent away to fail, to learn through suffering that his request was impossible. But he also saw an opportunity. A path. Narrow. Dangerous. But a path nonetheless. I accept, Daniel said. Sarah's father looked surprised. I'd expected hesitation. Negotiation. Not immediate acceptance. You understand what you're agreeing to. You'll be walking away from your village, your family, your life. For months. Maybe longer. With no guarantee of success. I understand. You could die. The mountains are unforgiving. The journey is long. Many have attempted similar pilgrimages and never returned. I understand that too. The elder studied him for a long moment. Then nodded slowly. Very well. You have until the next full moon to reach the shrine. That gives you 3 weeks. If you're not there by then, the priest won't see you. The trial will be forfeit. 3 weeks. Daniel calculated quickly. That was barely possible. Would require traveling constantly. Sleeping little. Pushing through exhaustion. 3 weeks, he agreed. Sarah's father gestured. One of the warriors stepped forward. Handed Daniel a small carved stone. A token of safe passage through the northern territories. Without it, he'd be killed as an intruder. Show this to any village you encounter, the elder said. They'll know you're on a sanctioned journey. They may not help you, but they won't harm you. Thank you. Don't thank me. The elder's voice was hard. I'm not helping you. I'm making it possible for you to fail properly. To learn that some divides can't be crossed. Some loves aren't meant to be. Daniel said nothing. Just tucked the stone into his pouch. Turned to leave. Wait. Sarah's voice. She emerged from one of the homes. Running toward them. Her face pale. Eyes wide. Father, please. Don't make him do this. The journey is too dangerous. The trial's too harsh. Her father's expression softened slightly. This is his choice, daughter. He accepted the terms. Sarah turned to Daniel. Tears streaming down her face. You don't have to do this. We can find another way. There is no other way, Daniel said gently. You know that. This is the only path forward. Then I'm coming with you. No. Daniel's voice was firm. This journey I have to make alone. The trials are mine to face. But if you love me, let me do this. Let me prove I'm worthy of you. That our love is worth any distance. Any sacrifice. Sarah looked at her father. Back at Daniel. Understanding settling over her. Promise me you'll return. I promise. However long it takes. However hard the trials. I'll complete them. I'll return. They stood there. Separated by tradition. Connected by love. The entire village watching. Sarah's father cleared his throat. You should leave now. Daylight waste. Every moment you delay makes the journey harder. Daniel nodded. Looked at Sarah one more time. Trying to memorize her face. Her eyes. Everything about her. In case this was the last time. Then he turned. Walked out of the village. West. Toward mountains he could barely see on the horizon. Behind him, he heard Sarah crying. Heard her father's quiet voice comforting her. Heard the warriors discussing his chances. Betting on how many days before he turned back. Daniel walked. Didn't look back. Couldn't afford to doubt. Couldn't afford to feel the full weight of what he'd just agreed to. The grasslands stretched before him. Endless. Beautiful. Indifferent to his struggles. He had 3 weeks to reach a shrine he'd never seen. In mountains he'd never visited. Following directions that were deliberately vague. But he had something else. Purpose. Love. A reason to keep walking when everything else said stop. The first day was easy. Daniel was fresh. Strong. He walked from dawn until dark, covering impressive distance. His legs accustomed to long walks with cattle. His body used to endurance. He passed through familiar territories. Places he'd walked before. Grasslands where he'd grazed his herds. Small groves of trees where he'd sheltered from rain. But by the second day, he entered unknown lands. Places he'd only heard about. Villages whose names he knew but had never seen. He showed the carved stone when challenged by warriors. They examined it. Let him pass. But offered no hospitality. No food. No water beyond what he could carry. He was marked as on trial. Unworthy of assistance. Daniel accepted this. Hadn't expected help. Just needed safe passage. The terrain began to change. The flat grasslands giving way to rolling hills. The easy walking becoming harder. His legs burning with constant climbing. He rationed his water carefully. His food barely. 1 small meal per day. Just enough to keep walking. Saving what little he carried. On the 4th day, the hills became steeper. His progress slowed. What had been covering miles became covering mere kilometers. The mountains ahead no longer distant. Looming. Intimidating. Larger than he'd imagined. He began to understand why Sarah's father had given him only 3 weeks. This journey would push him to his absolute limits. Night fell. Daniel found a sheltered spot. Made a small fire. Ate his meager ration. Thought about Sarah. About his family. About what he was doing. Doubt crept in for the first time. Real doubt. Not about loving Sarah. But about the possibility of success. About whether one person's determination was enough against such distance. Such difficulty. He pushed the doubt away. Reminded himself why he was walking. What he was walking toward. Love is earned, he told himself. Through sacrifice. Through endurance. Through walking when every part of you wants to stop. He slept fitfully. Woke before dawn. Started walking again. Days blurred together. Walk. Climb. Ration. Sleep. Walk. Each day harder than the last. The mountains growing closer but the path growing steeper. He encountered other travelers occasionally. Traders. Pilgrims. Wanderers. They looked at his clan markings. At his youth. At his obvious struggle. Some offered advice. Most just moved on. Everyone traveling their own difficult path. One older trader stopped to talk. Saw Daniel's exhaustion. Where are you headed, young warrior? The shrine in the western mountains. The old man whistled. Long journey. Hard journey. What drives you? Love. The trader laughed. Not unkindly. Of course. The hardest journeys are always about love. The easiest are about gold. Have you been to the shrine? Daniel asked. Once. Many years ago. The priest there is ancient. Wise. Harsh. He doesn't grant wishes. Doesn't make things easy. He teaches. Through difficulty. Through pain. Through trials that break most who attempt them. Did they break you? The old man smiled sadly. Yes. And remade me. Made me better. But it cost me everything I thought I was. Do you regret it? Every day. And never. Both at once. The trader left. Daniel continued walking. The conversation settling in his mind. A preview of what awaited. A warning he couldn't heed even if he wanted to. On the 10th day, Daniel reached the foothills. The mountains no longer distant but immediate. Massive. Stone faces rising toward clouds. Paths that switched back and forth. Climbing endlessly upward. His supplies were running low. He'd miscalculated. Used too much too soon. Now he had perhaps 3 days of food left. For if he stretched it impossibly thin. But he was only halfway to his destination. Daniel made a choice. Reduced his rations further. 1 tiny meal per day. Just enough to keep moving. His body would suffer. But he'd reached the shrine. Somehow. The climbing began. Real climbing. Not the gentle hills of before but steep paths. Rocky. Treacherous. His hands bloody from gripping stone. His legs screaming with each step. The air grew thinner. Breathing harder. His head light with lack of oxygen. Lack of food. Pure exhaustion beginning to settle deep in his bones. But he climbed. Because what else was there? Turn back meant accepting defeat. Accepting that love wasn't worth this price. Accepting a life half-lived. On the 14th day, Daniel collapsed. Not from injury. From simple depletion. His body finally refusing to continue. He lay on the path. Unable to move. Staring at the sky. Thinking this might be where the journey ended. An old woman found him. Local mountain dweller. She looked at his youth. His struggle. His determination written on his exhausted face. Water, Daniel whispered. She gave him water. Then broth. Warm. Nourishing. Against the rules of his trial but given anyway. Because some rules exist to be broken by compassion. Why are you killing yourself climbing these mountains? She asked. Love. Always the same answer. The old woman smiled. Of course. The shrine. Yes. You're close. 2 more days. But you need strength. Rest here tonight. Eat. Sleep. Continue tomorrow. Daniel wanted to refuse. Wanted to say he didn't deserve help. Didn't deserve rest. But his body made the decision for him. Accepted the kindness. The warmth. The simple gift of not being alone for 1 night. The old woman fed him properly. For the first time in 2 weeks. Real food. Meat. Vegetables. Grain. His body absorbing it desperately. She told him about the shrine. About the priest who lived there. About the trials he set for those seeking wisdom. No one knows what the trials will be until they face them, she said. The priest reads each person. Understands what they need to learn. Designs the trials accordingly. What kinds of things does he teach? The cost of things. The weight of choices. The difference between what we want and what we need. He breaks you down to see what you're made of. Most fail. Not because they're weak, but because they're not ready to face themselves honestly. Daniel absorbed this. Understanding more fully what awaited. Do you know anyone who succeeded? He asked. A few. They came down changed. Quieter. Deeper. Like they'd left something heavy on the mountain and picked up something light but infinitely more valuable. What did they leave? Pride, mostly. The old woman smiled. They believed that they were special. That their story was unique. That their suffering mattered more than others. The priest teaches you that everyone suffers. Everyone loves. Everyone faces impossible choices. You're not special. But your choices make you who you are. Daniel slept at night on a real bed. In warmth. With a full stomach. His body beginning to recover. His mind beginning to understand what he was really working toward. In the morning, the old woman gave him food for the remaining journey. Pointed him toward the correct path. Thank you, Daniel said. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. For having the courage to walk this far. Most turn back long before they reach even this point. Daniel walked. Refreshed. Stronger. The final 2 days difficult but possible. The path clear. The destination near. On the 16th day, he reached the shrine. It wasn't grand. Wasn't impressive. Just a small stone structure built into the mountainside. Smoke rising from a central fire. Simple. Ancient. Radiating a quiet power that had nothing to do with size. An old man sat by the fire. Very old. His face like carved wood. His eyes like deep water. He looked up as Daniel approached. You're late. Daniel stopped. Late. He'd had 3 weeks. This was day 16. The priest smiled slightly. Not late by the deadline. Late by the timing of your heart. You should have arrived days ago. Would have if you'd been fully committed. But you held back. Rationed. Conserved. Tried to be wise when you should have been foolish. I couldn't have made it if I'd used all my supplies earlier. You would have. Or you'd have failed. Either way, you'd have learned something about commitment. Daniel had no response. Already being taught. Already being challenged. Sit, the priest said. Tell me your story. Why you've walked so far. What you seek. Daniel sat. Told him everything. About Sarah. About the forbidden love. About his promise. About the trials he'd been told awaited. The priest listened without interrupting. When Daniel finished, the old man was quiet for a long time. Finally, you think you love this girl. I know I love her, Daniel replied. You know nothing. The priest's voice was gentle but firm. You think you know. You believe you know. But love isn't something you know. It's something you do. Something you prove through action. I'm here. I walked for 16 days. Isn't that action? That's infatuation. That's desire. That's the easy part. The priest poked the fire. Love is what comes after. After the romance fades. After the desire becomes routine. After you've seen each other at your worst and choose to stay anyway. Then teach me. Give me the trials. Let me prove it. The priest studied him. Measuring. Deciding. 3 trials, he finally said. Each will test a different aspect of love. Each will cost you something you think you can't afford to lose. Complete all 3, and I give you the proof you need. Fail any one, and you walk back down this mountain with nothing. I accept. Don't accept yet. Here the terms. The trials will not be physical challenges. Not tests of strength or endurance. Those you've already passed by getting here. These trials will test your heart. Your soul. Your true capacity for sacrifice. I'm ready. The priest smiled. No one is ready. But you're here. That's enough. We begin tomorrow at dawn. Tonight, rest. Eat. Prepare yourself as much as preparation is possible. Daniel was given a small space to sleep. Simple food. Water. He lay awake most of the night. Trying to imagine what the trials might be. Trying to prepare mentally for unknown challenges. But how do you prepare for tests designed specifically to break through your preparations? How do you steel yourself against trials meant to find your weakest points? You don't. You simply face them. One moment at a time. One choice at a time. One sacrifice at a time. At dawn, the priest called him. Daniel rose. Walked to the fire. Knelt. The first trial begins now, the priest said. And it begins with the question, what are you willing to give up for love? Anything, Daniel said immediately. Empty words. The priest shook his head. Everyone says anything when the cost is hypothetical. Let me make it concrete. He gestured to a small bundle beside the fire. Your clan markings. The signs of your identity. Your tribe. Your family. Your entire life before this moment. Remove them. Burn them. Walk forward unmarked. Belonging nowhere. Accepted by no one. Daniel's blood went cold. The clan markings weren't just decorations. They were identity. History. Every ancestor going back generations. Removing them was like erasing yourself. Becoming no one. If I do this, can I ever return to my village? Perhaps. Perhaps not. Depends on your village's laws. Depends on your father's mercy. Depends on many things you can't control. The priest's voice was neutral. This is the first test of love. Are you willing to lose your identity for it? Your past. Your sense of belonging. Daniel thought about his family. His brother. His father's expectations. The life he'd always known. Then he thought about Sarah. About their morning conversations. About the way she made him feel like his true self rather than a role he was playing. He realized something. He'd been losing his old identity for months already. Since meeting Sarah. Since understanding that the prescribed life didn't fit who he actually was. This trial wasn't asking him to give up something precious. It was asking him to acknowledge something he'd already lost. To make external what had already happened internally. Daniel reached for the bundle. Took out the materials. Began removing his clan markings. Carefully. Respectfully. Each mark holding memory. Holding meaning. But he removed them anyway. One by one. Until he was unmarked. Undefined. Belonging nowhere. The priest watched without expression. When Daniel finished, the old man spoke. Burn them. Daniel placed the markings in the fire. Watched them catch. Watched his identity smoke away. Watched centuries of ancestry reduced to ash. It hurt. More than he'd expected. Like cutting away parts of himself. But underneath the hurt was something else. Freedom. The strange lightness of having nothing to defend. No identity to uphold. No expectations to meet. Just being himself. Whatever that meant. The priest nodded slowly. First trial complete. You understand now that love requires shedding who you were to become who you need to be. What's the second trial? Daniel asked. Tomorrow. The priest gestured. Tonight, you sit with what you've done. Feel its weight. Understand its cost. Tomorrow we continue. Daniel sat by the fire. Unmarked. Undefined. Feeling strangely both lost and found. He'd given up his past. Now he had to discover if that made space for a future worth living. The night passed slowly. Daniel barely slept. His body ached from the journey. His heart ached from the sacrifice. But something in him felt lighter. Cleaner. Like he'd been carrying weight he didn't realize was there. At dawn, the priest called him again. The second trial, the old man said, is about truth. About seeing clearly what you've been refusing to see. Daniel waited. Tell me about Sarah. Not your feelings for her. Not your dreams of a future. Tell me about her. Who she actually is. Not who you've imagined her to be. Daniel began describing Sarah. Her kindness, her laughter, her grace. All the things he loved about her. The priest stopped him. Those are qualities you admire. Not who she is. Tell me about her flaws. Her weaknesses. The parts of her you've been choosing not to see. Daniel hesitated. I don't. You do. The priest's voice was firm. You've been meeting this girl for months. Long enough to see past the romance. To notice the small things. The imperfections. The traits that will challenge you. Tell me about those. Daniel thought. Really thought. About the times Sarah had been impatient with him. The times she'd been judgmental of others. The way she sometimes spoke before thinking. The way she could be stubborn. Prideful. Unwilling to admit mistakes. He'd noticed these things. But pushed them aside. Focused on her good qualities. Maintained the romantic ideal. Now the priest was asking him to look honestly. To see the whole person. Not just the person he wanted her to be. Daniel spoke. Describing Sarah's flaws. Her weaknesses. The parts that frustrated him. The traits that would be difficult to live with. The priest listened. Then asked, and knowing this. Seeing her fully. With all her imperfections and difficulties. Do you still love her? Daniel expected to answer immediately. But the question required thought. Real thought. Not reflexive romance but honest assessment. He thought about living with Sarah's stubbornness. Her pride. Her quick temper. The ways they would clash. The difficulties they would face. And underneath all of that, he found the answer. Yes. Not despite her flaws. But including them. Because love isn't loving the ideal person. It's loving the real person. With all the sharp edges and difficult corners. The priest smiled. Genuinely this time. Second trial complete. You understand now that love requires seeing clearly. Without illusion. And choosing anyway. What's the third trial? Daniel asked. Tomorrow. The priest gestured again. Tonight, you sit with the truth you've spoken. Make sure it remains true in darkness as well as light. Make sure your love survives honest seeing. That night was harder than the first. Daniel lay awake replaying conversations with Sarah. Remembering times when her flaws had frustrated him. Times when they disagreed. Times when the romance had felt more difficult than magical. He let himself feel the full weight of choosing a life with her. Not the fantasy version. The real version. With all its challenges. And he found that his choice remained unchanged. The love was deeper than romance. More solid than fantasy. Built on something real that would survive disappointment and difficulty. At dawn, he was ready. The priest called him to the fire one final time. The third trial, the old man said, is about sacrifice. About what you're willing to lose for love. I've already. You've lost your identity. You've lost your illusions. But you haven't lost the thing that matters most. What's that? Time. The priest's eyes were knowing. You came here expecting to complete 3 trials and return immediately. To prove yourself and claim your reward. To have your happy ending. Yes. That was the agreement. That was never the agreement. The priest spoke gently. The agreement was that you would complete 3 trials. It said nothing about timing. About when you could return. About how long you would wait. Daniel felt his stomach drop. What are you saying? The third trial is time itself. You will stay here. At this shrine. For 1 full year. Learning. Working. Waiting. No contact with your village. No contact with Sarah. No knowledge of whether she waits for you or moves on. Just time. Long empty. Uncertain. A year. Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. I can't. I told Sarah I'd return. My father will think I'm dead. My village will forget me. If your love can't survive a year of uncertainty, the priest said quietly, then it wasn't love. It was desire dressed as commitment. This is the third trial. The hardest one. Because it cost you nothing in a single moment and everything across countless moments. But Sarah's father gave me a deadline. 3 weeks to reach the shrine. Complete the trials. Return with proof. And you reach the shrine. And you're completing the trials. The priest gestured around them. This is the proof. Not a token. Not a symbol. But transformation. Real change that takes time to root properly. What if she doesn't wait? What if she thinks I abandoned her? Then you learn whether your love was based on certainty or faith. Whether you loved her or the idea of her. Whether this journey was about winning a prize or becoming someone worthy of love. Daniel felt the weight of this settling over him. Heavier than anything he'd carried climbing the mountains. A year. 12 full moons. 365 days. Each one stretching endlessly without knowing whether Sarah remained faithful. Whether she understood. Whether she waited. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this, Daniel admitted. Neither do I. The priest poked the fire. That's what the trial will reveal. You discover whether you can love without certainty. Whether you can remain faithful without reward. Whether you can endure not knowing. And if I refuse, if I choose to leave now, then you fail the third trial. Return to Sarah's father without proof. Live with knowing you came this far and chose certainty over faith. Maybe that's the right choice. Only you can decide. Daniel sat in silence. The fire crackling between them. His mind racing through calculations. Through fears. Through the impossible weight of choosing between now and later. Between certainty and faith. He thought about Sarah. About their morning meetings. About the promises they'd made. About her tears when he left her village. Would she wait a year? Could anyone wait that long without word? Without knowing? Then he thought about something else. About what the trials were teaching him. About shedding identity. About seeing clearly. About sacrifice. The trials weren't punishments. They were lessons. Each one stripping away a layer of selfishness. Each one teaching him that love wasn't about getting what he wanted when he wanted it. Love was about becoming someone capable of loving properly. Deeply. Sustainably. The year wasn't meant to be endured. It was meant to transform him. If I stay, Daniel said slowly, what will I do for a year? Learn. The priest smiled. Work. Serve. Study. I'll teach you things your village never could. About yourself. About love. About the difference between passion and commitment. About building a foundation that can support a lifetime rather than just a romance. Teach me what? Everything you need to know to keep love alive after the passion fades. How to communicate when you're angry. How to forgive when you're hurt. How to stay when living feels easier. How to choose each other every day even when desire becomes routine. Daniel looked at this old man. At the wisdom in his eyes. At the patience in his posture. At someone who had clearly learned these lessons himself through hard experience. You were married, Daniel said. Not a question. For 43 years. The priest's voice softened. She died 5 years ago. I came to this mountain afterward. To live with what she taught me. To share it with those desperate enough to climb this far. Did you love her? At the end. After 43 years. more than at the beginning. The priest's eyes were distant. The beginning was easy. We were young, beautiful. Passion made everything feel profound. The middle was harder. Children, responsibility, the daily grinding away of romance. But we chose each other. Every day. Even when we didn't like each other. We chose. That's what kept love alive. How? By doing what you're about to do. By learning that love isn't a feeling. It's a practice. A skill. Something you get better at through repetition. Through failure. Through choosing again and again until the choosing becomes who you are. Daniel felt something settle in his chest. Peace. Or acceptance. Or understanding. Maybe all three. I'll stay, he said. The full year. Teach me what I need to know. The priest nodded. Stood. Then we begin now. First lesson, patience. You tend the fire. Keep it burning continuously. For the entire year. If it goes out even once, you start your year over. Daniel looked at the fire. A simple task. Keep flames alive. Didn't seem difficult. But a year is a long time. The priest read his thoughts. 365 days. 8,760 hours. You'll get tired. Bored. Distracted. Sick. Angry. The fire won't care. It will need tending regardless of how you feel. Regardless of what you want. Just like love. Daniel understood. The fire was a metaphor. A practice field. A way to learn consistency when everything else was inconsistent. He began his year of waiting. The first days were the hardest. Not physically. Tending a fire wasn't difficult work. But mentally. Emotionally. Every hour felt like a week. Every day like a month. Time stretching impossibly slow when measured in distance from Sarah. Daniel thought about her constantly. Wondered what she was doing. Whether she knew about the year. Whether she believed he'd return. The priest noticed his distraction. You're not here, the old man said. You're somewhere between here and there. Divided. Suffering twice. Once from being away from her. Once from not being fully present here. How do I stop? You don't stop missing her. You stop letting the missing consume you. You practice being present. Fully. With the fire. With the work. With this moment. Even though you want to be elsewhere. The priest taught him meditation. Sitting. Breathing. Bringing attention back to now whenever it wandered to then or when or maybe. It was excruciating at first. Daniel's mind refused to stay present. Kept returning to Sarah. To doubt. To fear. But gradually, over weeks, he improved. Learned to exist fully in single moments. Learned that presence didn't mean not caring. It meant caring without being consumed. The priest taught him other things too. Practical things. How to communicate. How to fight fairly. How to apologize genuinely. When you love someone long enough, the priest said, you will hurt them. Not intentionally. But through misunderstanding. Through selfishness. Through simple human failure. Love requires knowing how to repair what you break. They practiced. Role-playing arguments. Disagreements. The small daily conflicts that erode relationships if not handled properly. Daniel learned that being right mattered less than being kind. That winning an argument meant losing connection. That pride was the enemy of intimacy. He learned to apologize without defending. To listen without planning his response. To validate feelings even when he didn't agree with them. These lessons felt theoretical. Abstract. He had no one to practice with except the priest. no real relationship to test his learning. But the priest insisted, "You're building muscle memory. When you're with Sarah, tired and frustrated and hungry, you won't have time to think about the right response. You'll fall back on what you've practiced. So practice correctly now. Build good habits before the stakes are real." Months passed. The seasons changed. Summer turning to autumn. Autumn to winter. Winter bringing cold that made tending the fire more challenging. More necessary. Daniel grew stronger. Not physically, though the daily work kept him fit. But internally. He developed a calm he'd never had before. A centeredness. A capacity to sit with discomfort without trying to escape it. He wrote letters to Sarah. Even though he couldn't send them. Even though she'd never read them. The act of writing helped him process his thoughts. Organize his feelings. Understand what he was learning and why it mattered. "Dear Sarah," he wrote one winter night. "I've been here 6 months. Halfway through my trial. Some days I barely think of you. Not because I love you less. But because I've learned to love you differently. Without need. Without grasping. Just loving. The way you love the sunrise. Appreciating without possessing." He wrote about the lessons. About tending the fire. About learning patience. About discovering that love was a skill requiring practice. "I'm becoming someone worthy of you," he wrote. "Or maybe I'm becoming someone worthy of love. Of any kind. Not because I'm perfect. But because I'm learning how to stay. How to choose. How to love when it's difficult. When passion has faded. When all that remains is decision. Daily. Repeated. Until the decision becomes who you are." The letters piled up. Unsent. Unread. But necessary. They helped Daniel understand himself. Track his growth. See how much he was changing. The priest read some of them. With permission. Offered feedback. "You're learning," the old man said after reading one particularly honest letter. "But you're still focused on outcomes. On whether she'll accept you. Whether this will work. Love doesn't require outcomes. Just offering. You give your love freely. Whether it's accepted or rejected. That's not your concern. How can it not be my concern? The whole reason I'm here is to prove myself worthy. To win her hand." "No." The priest shook his head. "You're here to learn to love properly. Whether that results in marriage to Sarah or not doesn't matter. The learning matters. Becoming someone capable of real love matters. The rest is just circumstances." This was hard for Daniel to accept. His entire journey had been motivated by wanting to be with Sarah. Being told that outcome didn't matter felt like someone moving the target after he'd already started shooting. But he sat with the idea. Let it work through him. And slowly understood what the priest meant. Love wasn't a transaction. Do this, get that. Love was transformation. Becoming someone who could love well. Whether or not that love was reciprocated. Whether or not it resulted in the relationship he wanted. Success wasn't winning Sarah. Success was becoming someone worth being won by. This shift in thinking changed everything. Daniel stopped measuring time in distance from Sarah. Started measuring it in lessons learned. In growth achieved. In person he was becoming. The fire still burned. Day and night. Through storms. Through calm. Through Daniel's doubts and hopes and fears. It burned because he tended it. Not because he felt like it. Not because tending brought immediate reward. Just because that was the commitment. The practice. The daily choosing. Spring came. 9 months since he'd arrived. 3 months remaining. The priest began teaching him deeper lessons. about conflict, about difference, about maintaining love when two people want incompatible things. Love doesn't erase difference, the priest said. Doesn't make two people identical. It creates space for two different people to exist fully while still being connected. How? Through respect. Through curiosity. Through genuine interest in the other person's experience even when it differs from yours. Through understanding that their happiness doesn't require them becoming like you. They discuss Sarah's stubbornness. Her pride. The traits Daniel had identified in the second trial. These won't go away, the priest said. Marriage won't change them. Time won't soften them. You have to love her including these traits. Not despite them. Including. How do I do that? By finding the gift in every flaw. Her stubbornness is also determination. Her pride is also strength. The traits that frustrate you are the same traits that make her who she is. You can't keep the parts you like and discard the parts you don't. You accept the whole person. Daniel practiced this. Reframing. Seeing Sarah's difficult traits as strengths in different contexts. Learning to appreciate what he'd previously resented. The year's end approached. Daniel felt both ready and terrified. Ready because he'd learned so much. Terrified because he still didn't know if Sarah had waited. If a year of transformation mattered if there was no one to return to. The priest seemed to sense this fear. You're afraid of wasting the year if she didn't wait. Yes, Daniel admitted. That's outcome thinking again. The priest smiled. The year wasn't wasted regardless of what happens next. You're different now. Better. More capable. Whether Sarah waited or not doesn't change that. But I did this for her. No. You did this for love. Sarah is one expression of love. One possibility. But not the only one. The capacity you've built exists regardless of who you love. You can offer it to Sarah if she's waited. Or to someone else if she hasn't. Or to yourself. To your family. To your community. Love isn't exclusive to romance. This was perhaps the hardest lesson. Letting go of the specific outcome. Trusting that the transformation was valuable in itself. The final week arrived. Daniel felt strange. A year of routine about to end. A year of waiting about to resolve. One way or another. The priest gave him his final teaching. When you return, the old man said, don't expect Sarah to have changed. Don't expect her to understand what you've learned. Don't expect her to match your transformation. She'll be exactly who she was when you left. Maybe more hurt. Maybe more angry. Maybe having moved on. Maybe having waited desperately. You can't know. Can't control. Can only control who you are when you meet her again. How should I be? Present. Honest. Open. Not attached to outcome but committed to truth. Tell her what you've learned. Show her who you've become. Then let her choose. Without pressure. Without manipulation. Without making your worth dependent on her answer. Can I do that? After everything. After this year. That's what the trials taught you. The priest's eyes were kind. You can love without needing love returned. Can offer without requiring acceptance. Can be worthy without needing someone else to validate your worth. The last night came. Daniel sat by the fire he tended for a full year. 365 days. Never letting it go out. Never failing in his commitment. He thought about the Daniel who had arrived here. Desperate. Romantic. Convinced that love was about getting what he wanted. About being with the person who made him feel complete. That Daniel had died on this mountain. Not dramatically. Gradually. Through countless small lessons. Through daily choosing. through learning that love wasn't about completion but about becoming complete enough to truly offer himself to another. At dawn, the priest gave him the proof he needed. Not a physical token. Something else. A letter. Written by the priest. Sealed. Addressed to Sarah's father. In this letter, the priest said, "I've described what you've learned. What you've endured. What you've become. It will not guarantee anything. Her father may still refuse. Sarah may have moved on. But you'll have fulfilled your promise. Completed the trials. The rest is not yours to control." Daniel accepted the letter. Tucked it carefully into his pouch. Felt its weight. Not heavy physically but carrying the weight of everything he'd experienced. "Thank you," he said to the priest. "For teaching me. For breaking me down and building me back better. You did that yourself. I just provided the structure." The priest placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Now go. Walk back down this mountain. Return to Sarah's village. Face whatever awaits. Remember what you've learned. Trust what you've become." Daniel began the descent. The path that had been so hard to climb felt different going down. Easier in some ways. Harder in others. His body was stronger. His spirit more settled. But the uncertainty ahead weighed heavily. He walked for days. Retracing his steps. Through the mountains. Across the hills. Through the grasslands. Each familiar landmark bringing him closer to resolution. Other travelers saw him. Noticed something different. Something settled. They would ask, "Where are you coming from?" "The shrine," Daniel would say. And they would nod. Understanding. Recognizing the look of someone who had faced trials and been changed by them. Daniel didn't rush. Didn't conserve energy the way he had on the upward journey. He walked steadily. Ate properly. Slept well. Taking care of himself in ways he hadn't before. Treating his body with the respect he'd learned to give himself. As he walked, he thought about what he would say to Sarah. How he would explain the year. How he would describe what he'd learned. But the priest's final words echoed, "Don't expect her to understand immediately. Don't expect her to match your transformation. She would be hurt. Angry. Maybe moved on." Daniel had to prepare for all possibilities. Had to love her enough to let her choose freely. Even if that choice wasn't him. This thought no longer terrified him the way it once would have. He'd learned that his worth wasn't determined by Sarah's choice. He was worthy because of who he'd become. Because of the work he'd done. Because of the capacity he'd built to love well. Whether Sarah wanted that love was her decision. He could offer it. Couldn't force it. Couldn't manipulate it. Could only stand in his truth and let her respond authentically. 2 weeks into his return journey, Daniel reached the territories near Sarah's village. His heart began to race. After all this time. After all this transformation. The moment was approaching. He bathed in a stream. Made himself presentable. Not trying to impress. Just offering respect. Showing that he valued this meeting enough to come prepared. Then he walked towards Sarah's village. The path familiar now. The same path he'd walked away from a year ago. When he'd been so different. So much younger in ways that had nothing to do with time. Warriors from Sarah's clan saw him approaching. Recognized him despite the time. Despite the changes. They moved to intercept. Hands on spears. Wary. State your business. I've returned. Daniel kept his voice calm. Steady. Completed the trials. Come to speak with your elder. With Sarah. The warriors exchanged glances. Surprise clear. They'd expected him to fail. Expected him never to return. The fact that he stood before them was itself proof of something. They escorted him to the village. Daniel walked with quiet confidence. Not arrogance. Just centeredness. Knowing who he was. Not needing to prove it. Sarah's father emerged from his home. Looked at Daniel with shock. You're alive. I am. You completed the trials. Daniel handed him the sealed letter from the priest. The elder opened it. Read it slowly. His expression changing from skepticism to surprise to something like respect. When he finished, he looked at Daniel with new eyes. The priest says you tended a fire for a year. Never letting it die. Learning patience. Discipline. Commitment. Yes. He says you shared your clan markings. Gave up your identity. Became unmarked. Belonging nowhere. Yes. He says you saw love clearly. Without illusion. Understanding the cost. I did. Sarah's father was quiet. Processing. Reassessing. This boy had walked away desperate and romantic. Had returned as something else. Something more complete. More grounded. Where is Sarah? Daniel asked. His voice steady despite his pounding heart. The elder's expression changed. Became sad. Complicated. She's here. But Daniel, you need to understand. A year is a long time. She thought you were dead. Thought you'd abandoned her. She moved on, Daniel finished. His heart breaking but his voice remaining steady. I understand. No. Sarah's father shook his head. She didn't move on. She waited. Every day. She's been waiting. But waiting has cost her. Changed her. She's not the girl you left. Can I see her? The elder nodded slowly. I'll send for her. But prepare yourself. She's angry. Hurt. A year of not knowing has wounded her. I understand. Sarah's father sent a messenger. Daniel waited. His heart in his throat. After everything. After a year of transformation. The moment had finally arrived. And he had no idea what would happen next. Sarah appeared from between the homes. Walking slowly. Her face pale. Her eyes wide with disbelief. She looked different. Thinner. Older somehow. The year had marked her too. Left visible evidence of its cost. They stood there. 20 paces apart. A year of separation between them. A year of transformation. A year of waiting. A year of not knowing. Sarah's face cycled through emotions. Shock. Relief. Joy. Then anger. Hurt. Betrayal. All of it visible. Raw. You're alive, she whispered. I'm alive. A year. Her voice grew stronger. Louder. A year without word. Without message. Without any way of knowing if you were dead or had simply abandoned me. I couldn't send word. The trial required. I don't care what the trial required. Sarah's voice broke. Do you know what this year has been like? Every morning waking up not knowing. Every night going to sleep wondering if I'd ever see you again. Every day my father telling me to let you go. To accept that you weren't coming back. To move on. But you didn't move on. No. She was crying now. Angry tears. I didn't move on. I waited. Like a fool. While everyone told me I was wasting my life. While other men asked for my hand. While my family pleaded with me to be practical. I waited. Because I believed in you. Believed in us. Believed in the promises you made. Daniel wanted to go to her. To hold her. To comfort. But he stayed where he was. giving her space, letting her feel everything she needed to feel. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I know the year cost you. Cost us both. But it was necessary." "Necessary for what?" Sarah's voice was sharp. "To prove you could walk far. To show my father you were committed." "You'd already done that. You'd already walked to the shrine. Already faced trials. Why did you need to disappear for an entire year?" "Because walking to the shrine proved I could endure physical hardship. The year proved I could endure emotional hardship. Uncertainty. Not knowing. Choosing love when there was no guarantee of reward. So this was all a test. Our love. My suffering. Just trials to prove something." "No." Daniel shook his head. "The trials weren't about proving anything to your father. They were about transforming me. Making me into someone capable of loving you properly. Not just wanting you. Actually loving you. Sustainably. For a lifetime. And you needed a year to learn that?" "Yes." Daniel met her eyes. "I came here a year ago desperate and romantic. Thinking love was about possession. About getting what I wanted. About you completing me. I was a boy playing at love. Not understanding what it actually cost. What it actually requires. And now I understand that love isn't about completion. It's about becoming complete enough to truly offer myself. It's about seeing you clearly, flaws and strengths, and choosing you anyway. It's about commitment that survives uncertainty. About daily choosing even when passion fades." Sarah looked at him. Really looked. Seeing the changes. The settled quality. The centeredness. The way he stood differently. Spoke differently. Existed differently. "You're different," she said. "I am. I don't know if I like it." She sounded lost. Confused. The Daniel I loved was eager and romantic and desperate. This Daniel is calm and centered and distant. Not distant. Present. There's a difference. "I don't understand." Daniel took a breath. Trying to find words for something he'd only recently learned himself. "The old me was always somewhere else. In my head. Worried about the future. About whether you'd love me. About whether this would work. I wasn't actually present with you. I was present with my anxiety about losing you. And now I can be here. Fully. With you. Not with my fears about us. Not with my need to possess you. Just here. Seeing you. Listening to you. Being with you. Whether or not you choose me. Whether or not this works out. Just present." Sarah sat down. Suddenly. Like her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. Sat right there in the dust. Looking up at Daniel with confusion and hurt and love all mixed together. "I don't know how to feel about this," she admitted. "Part of me wants to hit you for disappearing. Part of me wants to hold you because you're alive. Part of me is terrified because you've changed and I don't know if I can keep up." Daniel sat too. Not next to her. Across from her. Giving space but reducing the physical distance slightly. "You don't have to keep up," he said gently. "You don't have to change. I changed because I needed to. Because I wasn't ready for real love. You might be ready exactly as you are. Or you might need different growth. Either way, I'm not expecting you to match my transformation. Then what are you expecting?" "Nothing. Just offering. Offering who I've become. Offering what I've learned. Offering love without requirement. You can accept it. Reject it. Take time to decide. I'm not attached to the outcome anymore. Not attached." Sarah's voice rose. "You walked 1,000 miles. Spent a year away from everything. faced impossible trials. And you're telling me you're not attached to whether or not I accept you. I'm attached to loving well. Whether you're the recipient of that love is your choice. Not something I can control. Not something I should manipulate. This is insane. Sarah laughed. Bitter. Confused. The old Daniel would be on his knees right now, begging me to accept him, promising me everything, desperate for reassurance. The old Daniel loved desperately because he was desperate. Needed you to fill a void he didn't know how to fill himself. This Daniel loves from fullness. Doesn't need you. Just wants to share what he's become. If you wanted to. Sarah was quiet for a long time. Processing. Struggling with this new dynamic. She'd spent a year imagining their reunion. Imagine Daniel returning desperate and romantic. Sweeping her into his arms. Declaring his undying love. This was something else. Something harder to navigate. Daniel was offering love without pressure. Without need. Without the desperate edge that had defined their early relationship. It felt wrong. And right. Confusing. And somehow more solid than anything they'd had before. I don't know what to do with this, Sarah finally said. Take time. Daniel's voice was patient. Don't decide now. Process what I've told you. What you're feeling. What you want. There's no urgency. My father will want an answer. About whether you've succeeded. Whether you're worthy. I've already succeeded. Whether your father or you recognize it doesn't change that. I became what I needed to become. The rest is just details. Sarah looked at him like he was a stranger. And maybe he was. The Daniel she'd loved had been replaced by someone new. Someone better perhaps. But unfamiliar. Challenging in ways she hadn't anticipated. Can you tell me about it? She asked. The year. What you learned. What happened. Daniel told her. Everything. About the trials. About tending the fire. About learning patience and presence and proper communication. About understanding that love was a practice, not a feeling. About becoming someone capable of choosing daily even when desire faded. Sarah listened. Really listened. Hearing not just the words but what they meant. What they implied about who Daniel had become. You sound like an old man, she said when he finished. Wise and patient and settled. You're 19 years old. Age has nothing to do with wisdom. Just experience. I had a year of intense experience. It aged me in ways that matter. I'm still the same Sarah you left. She sounded almost apologetic. I waited but I didn't transform. I'm still stubborn and proud and impatient. Still all the things that frustrated you. I know. And I love you including those things. Not despite them. How can you love things that frustrate you? Because they're part of who you are. Your stubbornness is also your determination. Your pride is also your strength. The traits aren't separate from you. They're you. I can't keep the parts one like and reject the parts one don't. It's all or nothing. And you choose all. I choose you. All of you. If you have me. Sarah felt tears coming again. Different tears. Not anger this time. Something deeper. Relief maybe. Or recognition. Or the beginning of understanding. I need time, she said. To process this. To understand what you're offering. To figure out if I want it. Take all the time you need. I've learned patience. I can wait. Even if I decide no. Even then. Your choice doesn't diminish what I've become. Doesn't invalidate the journey. I'll be disappointed. But I'll be okay. This was perhaps the most radical thing he'd said. The old Daniel would have been destroyed by rejection. Would have needed Sarah's acceptance to validate his worth. This Daniel had found worth independently. Sarah's choice mattered, but didn't define him. Sarah stood. Daniel stood with her. They faced each other. A year older. Changed in different ways. Unknown to each other in new ways, but connected by something deeper than romance. "Thank you for coming back," Sarah said softly. "For keeping your promise. For not giving up. Thank you for waiting. I know it cost you. I'm sorry for that cost." They stood in silence. Then Sarah turned. Walked back toward her home. Daniel watched her go. Not desperate. Not grasping. Just present with whatever came next. Sarah's father had been watching from a distance. He approached Daniel now. His expression unreadable. "That went differently than I expected." "How did you expect it to go?" "More drama. More declarations. More typical romance." The elder studied Daniel. "You've changed significantly." "I have." The priest later said as much. "But seeing it is different than reading about it. You're calmer. More grounded. Less desperate." The trials worked. Sarah's father gestured toward his home. "Come. Eat. Rest. We'll talk properly." Daniel followed him. Was given food. Water. A place to clean himself. Basic hospitality extended to someone who had proven themselves worthy of consideration. Over the meal, Sarah's father asked questions. About the trials. About the year. About what Daniel had learned. Daniel answered honestly. Without embellishment. Without trying to impress. The elder listened carefully. Weighing. Measuring. Seeing if Daniel's transformation was genuine or performed. Finally, he spoke. "You fulfilled the conditions I set. Completed the trials. Returned with proof. I said I would consider your request if you succeeded. And I'm considering it." The elder smiled slightly. "But Sarah's choice matters more than mine. She's the one who would live with you. Who would face the consequences. I can approve or forbid. But ultimately, her heart decides." "I understand." "Do you?" The elder's eyes were sharp. "Because a year ago you were focused entirely on winning permission. On overcoming obstacles. On getting what you wanted. Now you seem almost indifferent to the outcome." "Not indifferent. Detached. There's a difference. I care deeply about the outcome. But I'm not attached to it. My worth doesn't depend on Sarah's choice. My transformation stands regardless." That's a fine distinction. It's the distinction that matters most. Attachment creates desperation. Detachment creates space for real choice. I want Sarah to choose me because she wants to. Not because I need her to. The elder was quiet for a long time. Then, "You remind me of myself. After my wife died. After grief stripped away everything inessential. Left only what mattered. You've been stripped too. Not by grief. By trial. But the result is similar. Is that good?" "Neither good nor bad. Just real." Most people live their entire lives without being stripped down to their essence. You've had it happen at 19. That will either serve you well or destroy you. Depends on what you build on that foundation. I'm trying to build wisely. We'll see. The elder stood. Rest tonight. Tomorrow Sarah will have thought about your offer. We'll have an answer. Whatever she decides, you've earned my respect. That's worth something. Thank you. Daniel was given a place to sleep. Not a guest room. Not family space. Something between. Acknowledged but not yet accepted. Recognized but not yet embraced. He lay awake thinking about Sarah's face. Her confusion. Her hurt. Her recognition of something changed in him that she didn't know how to navigate. The old him would have been terrified. Would have lain awake worrying. Trying to predict her choice. Trying to manipulate outcomes. This Daniel simply breathed. Practiced presence. Accepted uncertainty. Trusted that whatever came would be exactly what needed to come. Morning arrived. Daniel woke early. Found the village already stirring. People preparing for the day. Warriors leaving for cattle grazing. Women beginning their daily work. Sarah approached him as he sat by a fire. Her face serious. Resolved. Like she'd spent the night coming to difficult decisions. Walk with me, she said. They walked to the river. The same river where they'd first met. First spoken. First fallen in love across water and distance and impossibility. Sarah stood on one bank. Daniel on the other. Deliberately. Symbolically. Keeping the river between them. I've thought about everything you said, Sarah began. About transformation and detachment and seeing clearly. About love being a practice. About becoming someone capable of choosing daily. And I don't know if I can do it. Her voice was honest. Raw. I'm still the girl who fell in love romantically. Desperately. I still want the passion and the declarations and the desperate need. I don't know if I can love the way you're describing. I'm not asking you to love my way. Just to love your way. Authentically. Without pretending. What if my way isn't enough? What if romantic love fades and I don't have whatever you've built underneath it? Then we work together. Build it together. You don't have to arrive already transformed. You just have to be willing to grow. Sarah looked at him across the water. Seeing the parallel to their early meetings. The distance. The impossibility. The love anyway. I want to say yes, she said. Want to believe this can work. But I'm scared. Scared you've outgrown me. Scared I'll disappoint you. Scared we'll discover that transformation has made us incompatible. Those are reasonable fears. How do I overcome them? You don't. You feel them. Acknowledge them. Choose anyway. That's what love is. Choosing despite uncertainty. Committing despite fear. Building despite not knowing if the foundation will hold. Sarah was quiet. Then, the old you would have told me my fears were unfounded. Would have promised me everything would be perfect. Would have tried to reassure me out of my doubt. The old me would have lied. To you and to himself. This me knows perfection is impossible. Knows love includes doubt and fear and difficulty. Knows that promising certainty is promising a fantasy. So you're not promising me anything. I'm promising effort. Honesty. Daily choosing. Willingness to learn and grow and fail and try again. I'm promising to love you as well as I can for as long as you want it. But I'm not promising perfection or certainty or ease. That's not very romantic. No. But it's real. Romance fades. Reality remains. I'd rather build on reality. Sarah smiled. Sad. Conflicted. But genuine. You've really changed. Is that good or bad? I don't know yet. Ask me in 43 years. Daniel felt his heart skip. 43 years. The length of the priest's marriage. Sarah was giving an answer. Not directly. But clearly. So that's a yes? That's a terrified yes. A uncertain yes. A yes that includes doubt and fear and confusion. But yes. They crossed the river. Meeting in the middle. Water rushing around their legs. Holding hands for the second time. The first had been across water. This was in water. Symbolic of something. I don't know how to do this, Sarah admitted. Don't know how to love someone who doesn't need me. You learn. We both learn. Together. That's the whole point. They walked back to the village. Hand in hand. Uncertain but committed. Scared but choosing anyway. Sarah's father saw them approach. Saw their joined hands. Saw the resolution in their faces. He smiled. Not fully happy. Still worried. Still skeptical. But willing to accept what was happening. You've decided. We have, Sarah said. We are choosing each other. With all the uncertainty that includes. The elder looked at Daniel. And you? Still detached from outcome. I was never detached from this outcome specifically. Just detached from needing it to validate me. But I very much hoped for this. I am grateful for this. We'll work to honor this. Sarah's father nodded slowly. Then I give my blessing. Conditional. Probationary. Let's see if transformation survives daily life. If wisdom survives routine. If this new kind of love can sustain a marriage. Thank you, Daniel said. Don't thank me yet. The elder's voice was stern. Marriage is harder than any trial you faced. Daily. Relentless. Without the drama of mountains and shrines and spiritual tests. Just two people choosing each other when it would be easier to choose comfort. To choose self. To choose retreat. I understand. You don't. Not yet. But you will. The elder placed hands on both their shoulders. May you learn gently. May you choose wisely. May you build something that lasts. The village prepared for celebration. News spreading that Sarah had accepted Daniel. That the year of waiting had ended. That love had survived impossible distance and devastating uncertainty. But before celebration came practicality. Questions. Logistics. The actual work of building a life together. Daniel still had to return to his own village. Had to face his father. Had to explain his unmarked state. His year of absence. His choice to marry outside the clan. This would not be easy. Would perhaps be harder than anything he'd faced on the mountain. But Sarah would come with him. They would face it together. Two people learning to navigate difficulty as partners rather than individuals. Before they left, the priest letter had one more paragraph that Sarah's father hadn't read aloud. He showed it to them now. It said, the trials don't end. Marriage is the fourth trial. Daily. Endless. More difficult than mountains or fire or uncertainty. But also more rewarding. More transformative. More real. The shrine teaches you to love properly. Marriage teaches you to live properly. Both are necessary. Both are gifts. May they receive the gift with open hands. Daniel and Sarah read this together. Understanding that their journey wasn't ending. Just transforming. From dramatic trial to daily practice. From external challenge to internal choice. They left Sarah's village 3 days later. Walking south. Toward Daniel's home. Toward the confrontation that awaited. Toward the beginning of their actual life together. As they walked, Sarah asked him, do you regret it? The year. The trials. Everything you gave up. Daniel thought about this. Really thought. About his lost identity. His year of waiting. His transformation that had cost everything he'd been. No, he said finally. Every loss created space for something better. Every trial taught me something essential. I regret the pain it caused you. The year you spent not knowing. But I don't regret becoming someone capable of loving you properly. Even if I turn out to be impossible to live with. Especially then. Because I've learned to love difficulty. To see it as teacher rather than enemy. Your impossibility will teach me patience. Flexibility. Creativity. All things I need to learn anyway. You're very strange now. I know. You'll get used to it. Or you won't. Either way, we'll figure it out. They walked in comfortable silence. No longer separated by river but walking side by side. Still unknown to each other in many ways. Still uncertain about the future. But committed to discovering it together. The journey to Daniel's village took 5 days. Longer than necessary. They walked slowly. Talking. Learning each other in ways they hadn't before. Sarah asked questions. About the year. About specific lessons. About how Daniel had changed and why. Daniel answered honestly. Sharing things he'd never told anyone. Vulnerabilities he'd discovered. Weaknesses he'd faced. Growth he'd achieved. They also argued. Small things at first. Which path to take. When to stop for the night. How to ration food. Tiny disagreements that revealed larger patterns. Sarah was impatient. Wanted to push harder. Cover more ground. Daniel had learned patience. Wanted to move sustainably. Their first real fight happened on the 3rd day. Over something trivial. Sarah wanted to keep walking into twilight. Daniel wanted to stop while they could still see to make camp properly. We are wasting daylight, Sarah insisted. We are preserving energy, Daniel replied. Arriving exhausted helps nothing. You've become so cautious. So measured. Where's the passion? Passion isn't the same as wisdom. Maybe I need passion more than wisdom. They stood there. Frustrated. Tired. Revealing cracks in their unified front. The old Daniel would have either caved immediately or fought desperately. This Daniel simply stopped. Breathed. Applied what he'd learned. You're right, he said. I have become more cautious. More measured. That frustrates you. I hear that. What do you need from me right now? Sarah was thrown off balance. Had expected argument or defense. Got acknowledgement instead. I don't know. She sat down. Suddenly deflated. Maybe I'm just scared. About meeting your family. About whether they'll accept me. About whether this is all going to fall apart when reality hits. Daniel sat beside her. Not touching. Just present. Those are reasonable fears. Stop saying that. Sarah's voice broke. Stop being so reasonable. I need you to be worried too. To be as scared as I am. To not have all the answers. I am scared. Just differently than you. You're scared of rejection. I'm scared of failing you. Of discovering that transformation on a mountain doesn't translate to real life. Of losing you after everything. Sarah looked at him. Really looked. Seeing past the calm exterior to the fear beneath. You don't show it. I've learned not to let fear control me. Doesn't mean I don't feel it. How? Practice. Lots of practice. Feeling fear without becoming fear. Acknowledging it without being consumed by it. Sarah leaned against him. First real physical contact beyond hand-holding. Just leaning. Seeking comfort. Offering comfort. Teach me, she said. I will. We'll teach each other. You'll teach me passion. I'll teach you presence. We'll both learn balance. They camped there. Made love for the first time. Not frantically or desperately. Slowly. Present. Learning each other's bodies the way they were learning each other's souls. with patience, with attention, with reverence. Afterward, lying under stars, Sarah said, I understand better now. What you mean by presence? Being fully here rather than somewhere else in my head. It's different, isn't it? Than romantic fantasies. Different. But better. More real. More satisfying in ways that last beyond the moment. They fell asleep intertwined. More connected than they'd been across the river. More vulnerable than romance had ever required. More real. The remaining days to Daniel's village passed easier. They'd crossed a threshold. Moved from theoretical commitment to practical partnership. From promises to actual practice. When Daniel's village came into view on the 5th day, both their hearts began to race. This was the moment. The confrontation neither could predict or control. Warriors from Daniel's clan saw them approaching. Recognized Daniel despite the unmarked state. Despite the year's absence. Despite the woman from a rival clan walking beside him. They moved to intercept. Shocked. Confused. Hostile. Daniel. One of them squinted. Is that you? It is. You're alive. Where have you been? Your family thought you dead. We performed mourning rites. I've been on a journey. To the western mountains. Completing trials. The warriors looked at Sarah. At her clan markings. At the hand she held in Daniel's. Who is this? My intended wife. Sarah. From the northern clans. The warriors reacted with visible anger. You bring a northerner to our village. You've been gone a year and returned with a woman from our rivals. I return as someone who completed the trials required by her father. Who earned the right to marry her. Who comes to seek my own father's blessing. You're unmarked. One warrior noticed. You've removed your clan identity. I have. As part of the trials. As requirements for transformation. You're no longer one of us, the warrior said. Unmarked. Unaffiliated. You're nothing. I'm myself. More fully than I've ever been. That's everything. The warriors debated among themselves. This situation had no precedent. An unmarked warrior returning with a rival clan woman. Claiming completion of spiritual trials. Seeking blessing for forbidden marriage. Finally, we'll escort you to the elders. They'll decide what to do with you. Daniel and Sarah were led to the village center. People emerged from homes. Staring. Whispering. Shocked by Daniel's return. Hostile to Sarah's presence. Daniel's mother saw him and cried out. Ran to him. Held him. Sobbing with relief. My son. My son. We thought you dead. Gone forever. I'm sorry, Mama. I couldn't send word. The trials required silence. His brother approached. Face hard. Angry. You dishonored us. Disappeared without explanation. Let us believe you were dead. And now you return with this. He gestured dismissively at Sarah. With my future wife, Daniel corrected. Treat her with respect. Respect. His brother's voice rose. She's from the clan that killed our uncle. Raided our cattle. You betray everything we are by bringing her here. I betray nothing. I honor what matters most. Love. Growth. Becoming someone worthy of love. Clan rivalry is inherited. Love is chosen. I choose love. The crowd murmured. Divided. Some shocked by Daniel's boldness. Others intrigued by his transformation. All uncertain how to respond. Daniel's father emerged. Older. One. He looked at his son with complex emotions. Relief. Anger. Confusion. Hurt. Daniel. Father. They stood there. A year of absence between them. A lifetime of expectations unmet. You're unmarked. Yes. You've abandoned your identity. Your clan. Your family. I've discovered my identity. Beyond clan. Beyond family name. I'm still your son. But I'm also myself. Fully. For the first time. His father's jaw tightened. And this woman. Sarah. My intended wife. I've completed trials to earn her father's blessing. Now I seek yours. She's from the northern clans. She is. We've been enemies for generations. And maybe it's time that ended. Maybe my love for Sarah and hers for me can bridge what generation of pride couldn't. His father looked at Sarah. Really looked. Seeing not just her clan markings but her humanity. Her fear. Her courage in standing in a hostile village for love. This is what you disappeared for. This is why you let us mourn you. For a girl from our enemies. For love. For transformation. For becoming someone capable of building a life on something real rather than something inherited. The elders gathered. Forming a council. Debating. Daniel and Sarah stood before them. Holding hands. Facing judgment together. The oldest elder spoke. His voice grave. Measured. You violated our customs. Removed your markings without permission. Disappeared without explanation. Returned with someone from a rival clan. These are serious transgressions. I know, Daniel said. What do you have to say for yourself? Daniel took a breath. Prepared to share everything. His journey. His trials. His transformation. His understanding of what love required. He spoke for nearly an hour. Telling the full story. From meeting Sarah at the river to walking 1,000 miles to the shrine. From the 3 trials to the year of waiting. From transformation to return. The elders listened. The village listened. Sarah listened. Hearing parts of the story in fuller detail than Daniel had shared before. When he finished, silence hung over the gathering. People processing. Weighing. Deciding. The oldest elder spoke again. You've been on a genuine spiritual journey. That's clear. You faced real trials. Undergone real transformation. That's also clear. But personal transformation doesn't erase community responsibility. Your choices affect more than just you. I understand. Do you? Because marriage isn't just between 2 people. It's between 2 families. 2 clans. In your case, between enemies. Your love might be genuine. But the consequences extend far beyond your feelings. What are you saying? The elder looked at Sarah. Then back at Daniel. We cannot give our blessing to this union. The rivalry runs too deep. The wounds are too fresh. Your father lost his brother to her people. Your grandfather lost cattle. Your great-grandfather lost his son. Blood debt exists that you cannot simply ignore for love. Daniel felt his heart sink. After everything. After walking so far. After transforming so completely. Rejection. But then he remembered the priest's words. You can love without needing love returned. Can offer without requiring acceptance. Can be worthy without needing someone else to validate your worth. He stood straighter. Looked at the elders with calm eyes. I understand your position. Respect it even. But I cannot accept it. I choose Sarah. With or without your blessing. With or without your approval. With or without remaining part of this village. His mother gasped. His brother cursed. His father looked devastated. You would abandon us? His father's voice broke. Your family. Your people. For a woman you've known less than 2 years. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm choosing to build something new. If that means I can't remain here, then I'll leave. Sarah and I will build our life elsewhere. But I won't abandon love for tradition. Won't sacrifice genuine connection for inherited hatred. The crowd erupted. Angry voices. Supportive voices. Chaos. Sarah squeezed Daniel's hand. We can leave. Find somewhere else. Start fresh. But Daniel wasn't ready to give up yet. He had one more thing to say. He raised his hand. Called for silence. Waited until the crowd quieted. I have a question for the elders. For everyone here. When does the cycle of revenge end? When do old grievances stop defining new generations? My grandfather's pain was real. My father's loss was real. But must that pain extend to me? To my children? To children not yet born? We honor our ancestors by remembering, one elder said. Or by healing what they couldn't heal. By building bridges they couldn't build. By ending cycles they couldn't end. The elders exchanged glances. Uncertain. These were uncomfortable questions. Challenging deeply held beliefs. Daniel's father stepped forward. His face troubled but thoughtful. What you're asking, he said slowly, is for us to forget what was done to us. No. I'm asking you to remember but not let memory become prison. To honor what happened but not let it determine what must happen. To grieve losses but not create more losses in their name. His father was quiet. Struggling visibly with this. Then Daniel's mother spoke. Her voice soft but clear. I lost my brother-in-law to the northern clans. It broke my heart. Broke our family. But I've also lost my son to grief about it. To the weight of carrying hatred he didn't create. If accepting his choice means getting my son back, truly back, then maybe it's worth considering. The oldest elder looked at her. You would accept this woman? This northerner? I would accept my son's happiness. After that, everything else is negotiable. Other voices joined. Some supporting. Some opposing. The village dividing along generational lines. Younger people more willing to consider change. Older people more invested in maintaining tradition. The debate continued for hours. As the sun set. As fires were lit. As the entire village grappled with questions bigger than one couple's love. Finally, near midnight, Sarah's father arrived. He'd been following at a distance. Giving Daniel and Sarah space but staying close enough to help if needed. He walked into the village. Into the gathered crowd. Stood before Daniel's father. Two men who'd been enemies for decades. Whose families had warred for generations. Face to face. I'm here, Sarah's father said, to ask for peace. Not just for our children. But for all of us. This rivalry has cost everyone too much. Stolen too many lives. Created too much pain. My daughter and your son have given us an opportunity. A chance to end something that should never have started. To choose differently. Daniel's father looked at this man. This enemy. Seeing him for the first time as another father. Another person shaped by pain. Another human trying to protect his family. You would end generations of conflict. For two children's romance. I would end generations of conflict because it needs ending. Romance is just the catalyst. The excuse. The push we needed to face what we've been avoiding. That continuing this hurts us more than it honors our ancestors. The two fathers stood there. Everyone watching. History waiting to see if it would repeat or transform. Finally, Daniel's father extended his hand. Sarah's father took it. The crowd gasped. Silence fell. This simple gesture carrying enormous weight. We cannot undo the past, Daniel's father said. Cannot bring back the dead. Cannot heal all wounds. But maybe we can stop creating new ones. Agreed, Sarah's father said. The oldest elder stepped forward. His face grave but accepting. If both fathers agree, if both families accept, then the council will not stand in the way. Daniel and Sarah have our blessing. Conditional. Probationary. But blessing nonetheless. Relief washed over Daniel. But also something else. Understanding. The final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. The trials hadn't been about proving himself to Sarah's father. Or even to his own father. They'd been about becoming someone who could bridge impossible divides. Who could love strongly enough to heal generational wounds. Who could stand firm enough to give others permission to change. He looked at the priest's letter. At the final line he'd missed before. At words that suddenly made perfect sense. Love is not found. It is earned. Not through grand gestures but through daily choosing. Not through romance but through transformation. Not through proving yourself to others but through becoming yourself so fully that others can't help but be transformed by your example. Daniel turned to Sarah. She was crying. Happy tears. Relieved tears. Exhausted tears. We did it, she whispered. We did. But Daniel knew the real work was just beginning. Marriage. Daily life. Maintaining what they'd fought so hard to create. The village celebrated. Tentatively at first. Then more fully. Warriors from both clans drinking together. Families sharing food. Children playing across clan lines for the first time in living memory. It wasn't perfect. Wouldn't be perfect. Old tensions remained. Old wounds still ached. But a door had opened. A possibility created. A different future became imaginable. Late that night, Daniel sat with the priest's letter. Reading it fully for the first time. Finding wisdom he'd missed in his earlier haste. The trials don't end, the priest had written. They transform. The mountain teaches you to love properly. Marriage teaches you to live properly. Community teaches you to serve properly. Each is necessary. Each is gift. The journey continues. Forever. Until you learn that love itself is the journey. Not the destination. Daniel understood now. The 1,000 miles weren't about distance. They were about transformation. About becoming someone who could walk any distance. Face any trial. Choose love when love demanded everything. He'd walked 1,000 miles for love. But the real journey was the 1,000 miles he'd walk every day after. Choosing Sarah when desire faded. Choosing partnership when independence seemed easier. Choosing growth when comfort beckoned. That was the secret. The wisdom hidden in the journey. Love wasn't found in one dramatic walk. It was earned in countless small walks. Daily. Repeated. Until walking toward love became who you were. Sarah found him sitting alone. Sat beside him. What are you thinking about? Everything. Nothing. Just understanding finally what all of this was for. And it wasn't about winning you. It was about becoming someone worthy of being one. Of being chosen. Of choosing well. Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder. I still don't fully understand. All your transformation talk. Your detachment. Your presence. It's all very wise but very confusing. You'll understand. In time. Through practice. Through our marriage being the fourth trial. Fourth trial. Daniel showed her the priest's letter. The part about marriage being harder than any mountain. More relentless. More transformative. Sarah read it. Laughed. Of course. We don't get to just be happy. We have to keep learning. Always. That's the gift. Love that keeps teaching. Keeps transforming. Keeps demanding we grow. Some gift. The best kind. The kind that changes everything. They sat in silence. Two people who'd walked impossible distances to be together. Who'd faced trials that broke them down and built them back different. Who'd discovered that love wasn't the end of the journey but the beginning of a longer one. The village slept around them. Two former enemy clans sharing space peacefully for the first time in generations. Not because of politics or negotiations or forced treaties, but because two young people had loved each other enough to transform themselves. And in transforming, had given others permission to transform too. That was the real miracle. Not that Daniel had walked 1,000 miles, but that his walking had opened a path for others. Not that he'd completed impossible trials, but that his completion had made the impossible seem possible. Love, he was learning, wasn't private. It rippled outward. Touched everyone around it. Changed communities. Healed generations. Opened futures that seemed closed. All because one person had been willing to walk. To face trials. To transform. To love not just with feeling but with everything. With identity. With certainty. With time. With daily choice. With complete commitment even when commitment cost everything. The morning would bring practical challenges. Building a life. Navigating two families. Maintaining peace. Learning to love daily rather than romantically. All the hard, unglamorous work of turning promises into reality. But tonight, Daniel and Sarah sat together under stars. Having walked 1,000 miles to be here. Ready to walk 1,000 more. Understanding finally that love was never found. Only earned. Through sacrifice. Through transformation. Through walking distances that seemed impossible until you walked them. And then, having walked them, discovering that the real journey was just beginning. That every day required new walking. New choosing. New commitment. That was the secret the priest had tried to teach. That Sarah's father had tried to test. That the trials had tried to reveal. Love is not found. It is earned. Not once, but daily. Repeatedly. Forever. Until earning it becomes who you are. Until walking becomes your nature. Until love stops being something you do and becomes simply what you are. Daniel looked at Sarah. She looked at him. Both seeing clearly. Without romance obscuring. Without illusion softening. Just seeing. And choosing anyway. That was love. That was the lesson. That was the gift. Everything else was just details. The fire burned low. The village slept. The stars watched. And two people who'd learned to love properly sat together. Beginning their forever. One moment. One choice. One day at a time. This is Folklore Crypt. And remember, love is not found. It is earned. Through walking when walking seems impossible. Through choosing when choosing seems too hard. Through transforming when transformation cost everything you thought you were. The Maasai say, a single bracelet does not jingle. Two people complete each other. But completion doesn't mean finding your missing half. It means becoming whole enough to truly share yourself with another who is equally whole. Walk your 1,000 miles. Face your trials. Transform yourself. Not to win love, but to become worthy of offering it. Freely. Completely. Without need or grasping or desperation. That is the path. That is the wisdom. That is the love that lasts beyond passion. Beyond romance. Beyond feeling. That is love earned. Before the fire went out, that's when the best stories were told. And now the fire is out. The story is told. The wisdom passed forward. May you walk your 1,000 miles. May your trials transform you. May you learn that love is earned, not found. This is Folklore Crypt.